What's up, RBC and other people joining from YouTube and wherever you're finding us in the interwebs. I'm Andrew Holyby. I'm the president here at Riverside Bicycle Club, and we have a Jeff Paulson. It's going to be on from Spinergy. It's going to talk about their wheels, some of the unique things. We'll be talking discounts and all that kind of cool stuff and working through a slideshow. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on stage. What's up, Jeff?
Good evening.
AKA
Thanks for having me.
Spinergy guy. Yeah. So I had a buddy that turned me on to your wheels. And I thought it'd be really cool for our club because of some of the properties that your guys' wheels have for road biking, gravel riding, mountain biking, all that stuff. And we can kind of go through all of that. So you can tell us a little bit about origin story or however you want to start. We can kind of go from there.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys. So actually, if we can jump to the next slide.
Sure.
Spinergy started approximately 30 years ago, a little bit more than that, in the mid-90s. We started off in bicycle wheels. So that's where it all started. And you may also recognize us from wheelchair wheels. And I'll get into that a little bit in a second. But in the 90s, we had a very decorated wheel called the Rev X. It won numerous Tour de France's. It won Ironmans. It won cyclocross world champs. It won what was then the equivalent of mountain bike world champs. And it won road world champs as well. In fact, one year it did all four in 1 year. That wheel was so popular that we had 5 teams that we sponsored internationally. And we had teams that we didn't sponsor, literally buying wheels and covering up the logos and running them as well because they were so good. And they were so good, in fact, that a certain other wheel brand that was the major sponsor, UCI, took steps to basically get the wheel banned. And it was interesting. It took multiple failed attempts to prove that the wheels were unsafe. Everything from us rigging up jigs to throw chicken cutlets into spinning wheels to prove that they didn't chop off fingers any easier than the competitions did. Multiple failure tests putting us against the competition, again, showing that our wheels actually stood up better. And in the end, UCI said, well, if the wheels were to break and a piece was to fly off and hit a spectator, that could get us in a lot of trouble. And we said, well, yeah, if anything flies off a bike and hits a spectator, rider included, water bottle, etc., that's going to be a liability. But you've yet to prove that our wheels are any less safe than anything else anyone's running out there. And they sort of said, well, too bad. That's what we're going with. And so I think that was 2006. And overnight, that pinned an arm behind our back. Obviously, from a marketing halo standpoint, people like to run what the pros run. And we've continued to make bike wheels ever since. We've never stopped, but we've done so, I think, a little more strategically and a little more carefully. Since then, we are UCI legal now completely. But in the background, when bike was kind of was held back, so to speak, we got into wheelchair wheels. And wheelchair business at the time, paraplegics were living their lives in the equivalent of gumboots. For most of us, it was steel hospital-grade wheels for people that spent their lives in wheelchairs. And our founder saw an opportunity to take bicycle tech in the wheelchair. That's cool. As a result of that, we are literally the Apple or Nike or whatever you have of in the wheelchair world. We own about 95% of that market on the performance wheelchair side. So cool. The business on the wheelchair just went through the roof. Bike continued to go, but the brand focused on wheelchair. In 2021, we came back and said we want to get bike back to where it was. Marty, our CEO, liked hanging out in the pits of Tour de France and drinking champagne. And so we're doing what we can to make that happen for him one day again. But that's kind of the history of the brand. And like I said, in 2021, the whole line got redone. And we've always used synthetic spokes. Back with the Rev X, we used a carbon bladed spoke. We've since gone into fiber, starting with a material we called Spox about 25 some odd years ago. And now we're into a material called PBO, and I'll get into those materials in a bit. A couple other things that make Spinergy unique is that we completely own all of our manufacturing. We're 100% vertically integrated, and everything is made in North America. So the benefits of that are that one, from a lead time and production standpoint, we're not paying someone else to make our stuff or mess it up, and we're not pulling it from the other side of the planet. And that precipitates in better price points, precipitates in better quality control, better testing, and more ability to be flexible with the line to spin up new products, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, because you guys are kind of controlling it. So instead of waiting for it to come way over here, then you're just like crossing over and able to better control that. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, even like during the pandemic, we never really had a massive delay in bringing products to getting it to the customer, and that was because we weren't reliant on an international shipping overseas situation. It's also been good during this kind of slowdown in the bike industry where we're not saddled with tons and tons of inventory that's just depreciating like some of these other brands are. We can ramp up or ramp back as we need to. The last thing that sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what kind of sets you apart? Or you said you wanted to do one other thing. My dog is bugging me, so let me let her out. Okay.
The other thing I was going to say is that there's other brands doing stuff with fiber spokes right now, and they're doing it kind of like, I don't want to say it's square, post, round, hole, but they're using conventional material. They've got a unique spoke, but they're using conventional rims or conventional hubs, and it works. But we feel to better leverage fiber spoke technology, the entire system needs to be designed around it.
Right.
So we've looked at not just the spoke, but all the parts of the wheel and how to kind of create a system that works together a little more seamlessly, in our opinion.
Yeah, Dave was just saying North American manufacturing, yay.
Yeah. If we can move to the next slide. Any questions so far?
No, Dave was just saying yay. And then for those of you guys on my Trek, they make that you can kind of see this picture in here. Their Spinergy version has like one red spoke. You can customize those. So like my Trek has a red bike. It's all black spokes, but one of the spokes is red. So you can customize the spokes with all different kinds of cool colors he's showing you there.
That's a little spoke keychain that shows off the colors. So PBO is kind of our main secret sauce, as I've kind of hit on. We used a material before that we called Spox, and in a way it kind of catches people up because they'll remember Spox. They'll remember that it was good, but it wasn't perfect. And they'll get the two confused because visually the spokes look pretty similar. It's fiber. It's a certain type of fiber that's encased in a polyurethane sheath. So the fiber that we use is called PBO. So I figured out it stands for polyphenylene benzobisoxazole. It's a mouthful. And so what it is it's basically, like, if you can see here, this is a spoke with the top opened on it, cut open.
All the fibers.
There's about, in a regular spoke, there's 25,000 fibers in a spoke. There's 5 miles of fiber per spoke. So they're spider silk hairs, basically.
If you're watching, you can see right there, no more broken spokes. Eric just broke 2 spokes recently.
They're hard to break, 3 times stronger and half the weight. The amazing thing with them, obviously, is they dampen like crazy because you can tie them in a knot, you can tie them in a bow, you can do whatever you want with them. You can squish them, into a frame bag, whatever. And as you can imagine, if you hit someone on the head with a metal fork, it hurts a lot more than if you hit them on the head with a plastic fork. So obviously, vibration it just gets killed with these spokes. It stops basically at the spoke and doesn't go any further.
Yeah, so,
Um,
so if you guys have an older road bike and you're looking to like revamp it, um, make sure you ask Santa, because we're obviously talking to, you know, one of the elves in the workshop here, but make sure you ask Santa to get you one of them dampening wheels right there. Because I know on my TCR, I was able to, I think, try one of these, and it was like a big difference. So, okay, cool.
um, the the other big thing though that's harder to kind of explain to people in marketing and whatnot is that they're not just about being comfortable. It's not a quote unquote comfort wheel. The neat thing about PBO is that it's also, in addition to killing vibration, it's incredibly finite in its length. And that was where we had issues with the previous material. It would do what's called creep. And creep basically means how far something will stretch when it's put under tension.
Right.
PBO is more finite in its length than steel. So, and in order for a wheel to flex, if this is a wheel head on and these are the spokes have to stretch in the direction that they're deflecting. And so you have lateral flex with a wheel when you're cornering, and you have fore aft from braking or just mashing on the pedals. And so even though they damp like crazy, they're
They
not
don't see it.
noodles. And
Okay.
so that's the neat thing is you get a very lively wheel. It's not a dead feeling. It's a lively wheel that, you know, it's very reactive,
Yeah.
but it's also very calm at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, we do three different types of spokes. The one that's most common in most of our mountain and our gravel line is our 3 mil spoke. And I'll kind of put them all together real quick. So there are 3 mil spoke, which is this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we do a 4 mil spoke, which isn't really as pertinent to this conversation. We use that, call it our moto spoke, because it literally is as thick as a motorcycle spoke. We use that on our e-mountain bike wheels. And then what will interest you guys probably is we can do them bladed as well.
Oh, that's cool.
So we can actually press them flat. Um, and I don't know how we do it, but they don't come unflat in the sun or whatever. They stay flat, but we can do an arrow spoke.
And those are on the road? Because I haven't seen those on the gravel
Yep,
sets.
that's
Yeah.
completely on the road. It is available as an upgrade if you want it on gravel. We can do it. It's a custom thing.
Yeah. And Eric Pippins was saying they use Spinergy wheels extensively on Santana tandems for teams from 300 to 400. Yep.
Yep. We do a ton of stuff with tandem, and that's because our wheels they don't have a weight limit.
Right. And that's why I picked your wheel, because you guys don't have a weight limit. So I did that for my bike packing bike.
Yeah. One last thing I'll do. It always takes a bit for me to get past the PBO, so I apologize. I'm going a little long on this, but it's probably the most important thing. It's incredible. Like I said, it's incredibly hard to break a spoke. It takes about 450 or 4,500 pounds of point load on a spoke to bust one. So that's like, you're putting a pretty thick stick through your wheel to do that. And I'm not gonna lie, I've seen it happen, but usually it's the first spoke. And one question I get a lot of is like, well, what if I break a spoke and I'm, in the middle of nowhere? And I was just talking to Andrew about this earlier, is that it more often than not, you're not going to break a spoke. You can tear the jacket open on the spoke and expose a few fibers, which isn't really going to affect the wheel. It'll stay true and keep rolling just fine. And we can get new spokes for you. That's no problem. But all you really need to do, if you could keep riding it indefinitely like that, all you really need to do is just cover it up with some electrical tape to keep the UV off of it, because that's the one thing PBO doesn't like is UV.
Yeah. Us bikepackers usually have duct tape or
duct tape is, yeah. If you can't duct it, then yeah.
So Dave was asking, and we had talked a little bit this about off camera too. Can you talk about your GX Max wheels and loaded bike packing application?
So yeah, the GX Max, which we can get into when we get into the models, but the GX Max is basically our monster gravel wheel. It does double duty in our line as both a monster gravel and a cross country / trail wheel. So, and I can do it in boost and non-boost. I can do it in 650 and 700. So it's basically, we took our GX, added 4 more spokes into it. That's the wheel that we use for building up, cutthroats and ghost grapplers and, really wide bikes, I guess is, for getting that way out there.
Cool.
Yeah, set it and forget it wheel.
So yeah, they did. You must have missed the first beginning part. That's kind of where the origination of the team. The bunch of pro teams used them. UCI being UCI had a bunch of weird rules. Now, of course, everything is okay and we're all good to go. And then on the screen, it says, "Are they lighter or heavy?" He's talking specifically about the spokes, carbon rims or carbon rims. So
the wheels we'll get into themselves a little bit later, but the spoke itself is half the weight. So the spokes are much lighter than steel. And to answer the question on teams, right now the main team we are sponsoring is Opicure team on the gravel front. We definitely have focused a lot on gravel. It's been a huge growth area, largely because the performance aspect is so noticeable and perceptible in that area, but it pays off on all terrain. So I've hit PBO a lot. I can talk more about it, but we should probably bounce to the next one. So we redid the line. We went to our new 44 hub. These are 90% made in our factory in Mexico, and then the free hub body is the only thing we outsource, and we do that to a brand that you guys have probably heard of because he's not too far from your neck of the woods, Hadley. Hadley Racing has been making free hub bodies and BMX hubs and whatnot for years up in Upland. So we work with him exclusively. We have, as far as I know, worked with him since the early days with the brand, and have a great relationship. And he's close by. He's easy to work with, and makes solid stuff. The 44 is named because, as you can see in the picture, comparing it to kind of more of a traditional. We probably should have a little more current comparison here because 36 is kind of the standard for mountain, and 28 is a little skinny for road. But either way, it's substantially wider. And we can do it because we have the packaging space in the hub. We have these wide flanges, so we have more area to work with to do a wider ratchet ring setup. And by doing that, we just have more power, a better power transfer, because you have bigger pawls, a bigger ratchet ring, and just more material overlap. And we did it initially because we wanted to make an e-bike wheel. And in talking to Hadley, he said, well, you guys have the space for it. Why don't you just do this across everything? But for an e-bike, you want to have, that's where failures happen, at the hub, because there's just so much wattage going into it. So we initially did it for e-bike, and then realized that the weight benefit wasn't, or the weight issue, there wasn't much of a weight issue going to it across the board. And we were able to simplify, I'm just going to tilt my screen a bit here, simplify our hubs substantially, and keep kind of more of a uniform system. It is completely slip fit, so I can pull the whole thing apart and switch free hub bodies by hand, no tools involved. We run HG, XD, XDR, Campy N3W, and micro spline. So I can do pretty much anything that's common out there. We're one of the few companies that has that's Campy. Obviously, I can do micro spline. I always could do micro spline on a gravel wheel set, which is now a thing with the new GRX 1x. So there's a lot of cross compatibility with these, and there's not, from a future proofing standpoint, there's nothing that they can't really address right now.
I'd say let me interrupt you real quick. So there's two kind of big things. So one is like mechanics and stuff. The feedback I've gotten is that these seem to be more reliable. And then for you guys watching, if you've ever had to choose, some wheel sets, when you get a hub, you have to pick one of these options. And then if you want to, for some reason, switch that, then you have to get a whole other hub. Some are interchangeable, some aren't. So yours are all tool-free, interchangeable, just like you did. You just pull it off. And then the ends too, because my buddy Ed was actually talking about that. So one of my bikes has a 15 up front, and you can just change the end caps, right, from 15
Yeah.
to 12.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you can't go. The one thing you can't do, a lot of people ask about, is can I turn my boost hub into non-boost? And that's most people get that, but
Yeah.
some people don't. And so I always like to say, no, we don't make a conversion kit to turn, either turn you to boost or turn boost off on your wheels. That's dictated by the hub shell.
Right.
Width.
That's this.
Yeah.
You'd have to be performing Harry Potter magic to make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing with the free hub body is I also do it, and we did it initially for tandem, but we do a titanium 4-pole version, which doubles the engagement on it, which is kind of cool because titanium doesn't clock like aluminum does on an HG setup. There's not really any getting around clocking on just by virtue of the design in individual cogs with an HG. But the titanium is it's gonna up your engagement. Not something that I would necessarily, I don't usually push it to road and gravel people. More pertinent to mountain bikers because they tend to favor engagement over and not worry about drag as much, but just something that's interesting.
Yeah, for those of you guys doing road or even gravel, 108 points of engagement. If you've ever, gone up a hill and you slip a little bit, then you want more engagement. And Ed is always talking about that. And he's the one that convinced me to get the Spinergy wheels because of that. Because like I did have a couple of instances where mine is probably like 30 or something. I don't know what my wheels were, but it wasn't great. And I do a full half rotation as I'm like slipping backwards, and that's no good. On the road, it just makes it smoother. And the hubs are really, really reliable, are the big things for you guys. So want to go on to the next slide then?
Yeah, we can move on to rims. So we do some wheels on aluminum rims. Our aluminum rims are sleeved welded rims. They're super light. They're crazy light. You'll get a sense of that when we get into the products. And then on the carbon side, we're kind of unique. There is another brand that does run a foam core, but we're the only brand that I know that's running a foam core in carbon. And we do it for a couple reasons. One, we get out of using a mandrel. A mandrel is basically a bladder that's put inside the box section of a rim, and it expands in the mold to fill up that cavity and make it not full of carbon. The problem with a mandrel is that you have to get it out once you're done forming the rim, and how you do it is you cut a hole between two spokes somewhere or two spoke holes somewhere on the rim, and you rip that mandrel out. The problem with that is that invariably
create a weak point.
Entire mandrel doesn't come out. Like you'll have chunks of it that are stuck. So you have balance issues with the wheel where there'll be chunks. Not crazy. I mean, it's not enough to like cause cavitation, but it does it creates weight imbalances with the wheel. It also leaves a section that mud and guck and rain and sealant can get into, and once it goes in there, it's not really ever going to come out.
Yeah.
We use a very light closed cell foam that doesn't break down to form the rim around it, and we leave it in. By leaving it in, we've realized a couple benefits. One, stuff doesn't get in there because there's nowhere for it to go. It's completely sealed off except for the holes. Two, it adds some structure and impact resistance. So you've kind of got a backbone, if you will, on the wheel, which is great. I'm going to close the door here because I've got kids right outside here.
Them crazy kids.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Three, it adds another level of dampening. And I wish I had this, but I don't. But I'll do a thing where I take one of our regular aluminum wheels and I whack it with the plastic end of a screwdriver, and it hums. It does that kind of tuning fork thing, and then you hit this, and it just sounds dead. And so that illustrates.
And for you guys doing like downhill stuff, when you go, I've had wheels do that. When you're going down, and especially on like the smaller road wheels on 28s, you'll get a resonance where it's picking up and it's like, so that would probably deaden that because it's not going to allow that. Yeah,
it shuts that up. And so it adds like another level of dampening basically to the wheel. And what I like about it, and maybe you could call me out and say that's not really a performance characteristic, Jeff, but it makes for a very quiet ride. So
Yeah.
you can hear, you can hear the ground crunching under your tires. You can hear what's going on while you're riding.
Yeah.
And quiet bike's a happy bike.
Yeah,
So
that's me. Like I am like when I want my bike to run as quiet as possible because then I know, oh, I need to like oil my chain or what. Now I've gotten more meticulous over the years where I'm oiling my chain every single ride, right?
yeah.
And I just admit that. But yeah, my bike place is my quiet place. So for me, I'd totally put that under like performance characteristics. So it's really cool. I did not know that.
I know we're I don't want to go too long here, and I got a few more things to share. So we'll quickly go into, well, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but yeah, we can go to the next slide.
Power shift. Okay.
I'm just going to say that if you know about classified's power shift, we do it. And this is kind of illustrates our ability to kind of prototype and bring new product to market quickly because of our manufacturing capability. We're the only brand that I know of that's actually making their own hub that works with classified. Otherwise, you're building on their hub. And so
Yes.
we were able to spin that up within basically a month of them launching well over a year ago. So it's very cool tech. I'm more than happy to take a deeper dive on it, but I'll save that till the end. If people want to stick around and talk about it, I'm happy to talk about it. But it
Yeah.
eliminates the front derailleur basically.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
It's a good Google, but basically it's a cassette that internally shifts, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool, and it's wireless.
Yeah.
So you can add it to bikes that sometimes you wouldn't be able to. So maybe a bike that you have to have that's a 1x and you didn't like as much as you thought you did. Like I'm a 2x guy, except for my bike packing bike. Then this is another really cool option where it's actually shifting. Definitely a good Google, but let us know in the comments if you want us to talk more at the end on that, because it is really cool tech to drool over. And it is cool that you guys are making that. Cause like you said, you're the only one I know that's actually making the wheel for it, where everybody else is just kind of slapping it on their hub and kind of going from there. All right. So currently available road wheels, gravel wheels.
Yeah. Let's jump to the next slide.
Next one, slide 8.
So road, and that's so you jump to the next one after that. So road, gravel, mountain bike. This is the gravel line. So let's jump to the next slide after that, which kind of goes through the 4 different wheels that we do. We do the GXX, which is our top of the line carbon wheel. Retail on that is $13.19. 24 spoke, 24 millimeter internal. And then I'm going to hop the GX32 to the GX, which is basically the aluminum brother at $815 price point. Same internal. And we do the GX Max, which we talked about briefly, which is basically the GX on steroids. We add 4 spokes, and we add also the ability to go 650 and boost if you want to. And then the 32 is kind of our all road / it's also our cyclocross wheel because it's a deeper wheel. It's 32 millimeters deep, so it's got a little more of an aero profile to it, and it's 19 internal. So more suited to somebody that's either going to be, that's dirt curious, but is, wants something to go in between on their Roubaix or whatever, or for cyclocross. We see a lot of those on there. So that is gravel. And then we can jump to, this is mountain bike. It sounds like, I'm happy to discuss mountain bike. We have a great mountain bike lineup. All these wheels are carbon. The E one on the left is obviously our e-bike wheel that uses that fat spoke, but I'm going to kind of skip this because I know your club is more focused on the road and gravel side of things. So let's jump the mountain bike.
I'm only going to say I got the MXX 30 because you guys are the only ones that make gravel spacing. That's 142 for you guys watching, but it's a 30 millimeter, and I wanted a bigger rim for my Kona because I got big old fat 2.6s on there.
And I guess I'll piggyback on and say that the 24s can also go in that spacing, and the e-bike wheels I can go up. I can go into super boost, but again, that's getting way out there. So road, our 2 carbon wheels, the FCC 47 and 32, identical construction, 16 spokes radial front, 20 in the rear with a 2 cross on the drive side. The number kind of is your depth indicator on these guys. So 47 and 32 depths. only disc available. We did do rim up till last year, and I know what people are going to say, but it's the real reason why the industry is getting out of rim brake. This is an industry secret, but the real reason we are being forced out of rim brake on carbon is because the material that's used in the brake track on rim brake carbon is no longer available to the bike industry. Aerospace has priced us out of the market on it. And that happened when COVID wrapped up and Boeing just started writing POs like crazy for new airplanes. And then Ukraine hit, and then, all these other things have gone off. So, we cannot write a PO that the guys that make this stuff will even take seriously. And it's not just us, it's, Zip and Envy and all the major players are walking away from it. So
Yeah,
I know a lot of people think that it's the industry's forcing disc brake down people's throats. The real reason why is just we cannot buy the volume that would make us get noticed.
Got priced out. Okay.
Yep. So the Z32, that's the aluminum version of the FCC 32. So same spacing and whatnot, just an aluminum configuration. And then the Z Lite is our classic rim brake wheel. We've done this wheel for years. This has been kind of the longest running wheel we've done. Beautiful wheel. It's not a deep wheel. It's a great training / climbing wheel. They're incredibly lightweight for an aluminum wheel. We still sell a ton of these and have a very loyal following on that rim. So that's the line. If we get to the next slide. So getting into pricing for you guys, the way it works is I've set up a team code. It's not live yet, and I'll get into why that is in just a second. But normal team pricing is going to be 30% off wheel sets with your code. And then I'm going to set up a special one-time code that will expire at the end of January that will get you 35%. 25% on service parts, but those have got to be ordered directly through me. And you guys will have my email and my contact info to get that stuff. And then obviously access to VIP sales and promotions, product releases, that kind of thing that other people don't get to know about. Hopefully it'll also include me getting out there and visiting you guys for a ride or two. The reason the codes aren't active right now is we are running a ridiculous Black Friday sale. It's still going right now, where a good chunk of the line is actually above this, and we're a lot of the industry is doing this right now. So hopefully that's kind of understood. But right now, we've got, I think GXXs are 40% off. So right now team codes are turned off, and I guess my point is, if you want an incredibly good deal, right now the website is pretty helpful. And there's certain wheels that aren't in that deal, but codes are turned off. If you do want certain wheels that aren't, I can still get you that 35%. You just need to reach out to me directly, and I think codes will come back on here in the next day or so. So we can still get you your pricing. It's just kind of a roundabout way of doing it. From a warranty standpoint, and this is kind of the last thing that I'll get into, but I always like to talk through it because it's important. We do a 2-year manufacturing materials and workmanship warranty. And I know a lot of people immediately throw their hands up and say, well, so-and-so does lifetime, so-and-so does this, so-and-so does that. And I like to unpack that, because a lifetime warranty, typically covers those 3 things. Like I said, manufacturing materials and workmanship. And so most of the time on a bike part, if you were actually riding your bike, if there's something fundamentally wrong with the construction and the materials of the product, you're going to notice it within the first week, maybe month of riding. It's not going to materialize 10 years from now or 13 years from now. You're going to realize it pretty quick. So brands put these lifetime warranties on products to get kind of uneducated customers over the line, give them a warm and fuzzy feeling, and also slap a $500 or $600 price hike on the product. And then when they actually do break something, in a situation where it's crash or whatnot, the customer has to learn, oh, it wasn't a no questions asked. I could run over this with my car, or my lawnmower didn't count. Our crash replacement is lifetime, and
That's
our
awesome.
pricing on crash replacement is, I think, some of the best in the industry. We're about $200 to spin up a new aluminum wheel, and we're $300 to spin up a carbon wheel. So it's pretty good. I've done other wheels where it was double that. On top of that, where we differentiate, and I know I'm getting long here, we do a lifetime trade-in policy. And so what that means is, if you get a new bike and the standards on it are different than your old bike, or you just decide that you don't want to ride gravel anymore, you're going to go exclusively to Tri, and you're building a Tri bike up now, we will take your wheels back and give you as close to crash replacement pricing basically as we can do on a new wheel set for you. And that's irrespective of how long you've had them. I have people with Rev X's that reach out to me all the time, or what condition they're in. They can be like absolutely destroyed.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's
the whole shebang.
That's the whole shebang. Went as fast as I could there.
No, that's good.
An ending slide there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thank you so much for sharing that. We went over a lot of content, and like you said, as quick as possible, because I was really pushing that. I am going to try to put this on screen for those of you guys watching, except let me see here if it's going to let me. I'm going to try to do another window and see. So the sale is pretty darn crazy. So let me present, share screen. Let me do window.
One thing I'll note is that the sale is largely based on product we have on the warehouse. So there's certain wheels like the FCC right there. It actually doesn't show on sale because you've got the Spinergy. It defaults to the Spinergy edition colorway, which is that one white spoke. But if you switch it to all black if you switch that guy to all black, you'll see it goes from.
This is why I wanted to show this live, by the way. So now it's down to $8.99.
Yeah. So almost all the wheels that come in black are on sale. Some of the Spinergy edition wheels, and Spinergy edition, like I said, is one colored spoke. On gravel, it's red. On road, it's white. And then custom.
Yeah.
Custom is not on sale because it's custom.
Yeah. So we talk about you guys, if you want to, you can custom. I think one of the coolest things about your wheels is that you can custom. I've had all green spokes. You can do all red, black. You can do, well, I can show you. They have a Belgian waffle one that's all these colors. Now these are not on sale, but you could do it. So you could get a killer deal, which is cool that you guys are given that option. Is you can get a killer deal on, let's see what
if you click on there, grab that guy, then scroll down to where it says customize. This is kind of neat how this works. There's that big, there you go. This takes a second to load. So then you can hit like drive side spokes.
Oh, sorry.
I hit custom, and now you can click on a spoke. Yeah, and you can actually get it down to the actual spoke. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I've done some pretty crazy spokes. I've done some where I'm like, man, that looks good for people. And I've done some I was like, you're the boss.
It's like, that's weird, but you got it, bro. So that's what, and for me, it was such a cool thing. Like all of us have asked Santa for a new wheel set. Yeah. And so I pulled the trigger on 2 recently, but so I did the 650B, especially for you guys that are like, I want to do road. And so maybe you guys have an endurance bike and you want to see if you want to maybe do a little bit of gravel. These really spin very, very well. And at least in Riverside, there's a ton of roads where I've done with like the B group and stuff. It's rough. And these things, as soon as I hopped on it, because I got them and then put them on there, and I had to drop my wife's car off at the dealership and rode my bike. And the streets are kind of jacked up there, and they feel fast, they feel light. and they're cool looking too. And like I said, the one cool thing you can get a deal on that looks really cool, if you have a red bike, the GXX and the Spinergy, it's on sale.
Yeah.
One red spoke and all black spokes. It's a really cool looking wheel in general. Let's see, yellow spokes to match our gravel kit. Dude, I know. I thought about it. Who knows? Maybe someday I'll buy a third
We've
Spinergy
done
set.
team wheels before.
And then what is the website? It's I guess I can just put it back up again.
It's www.spinergy, but then it's going to ask you if you want to go into road or sorry, wheelchair or bike. So you just got to pick from there.
Yeah, just do Spinergy Wheels, and it'll show both. Just do bicycle and then go from there. Yeah.
And if you want to check us out on Instagram, look us up under Ride Spinergy, not Spinergy Wheels. So again, that's kind of where the wheelchair versus bike gets a little confusing. But yeah, Ride Spinergy is where
Ride Spinergy on Instagram. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And let's see. I think that's it for comments. And yes, that is a ton of value for your money. And cool. Well, thank you guys so much for participating in the comments. Thank you so much, Jeff, for just going over a ton of information in a really short period of time and bearing with us on that. And then for those of you guys watching, just to wrap all this up, right, you have damping. They're probably lighter than your current wheel set, unless you're running like a super light one. You can customize the colors. There's crazy sales going on right now. You have super strong if you want to do bike packing, or if you're into mountain biking and you run the stuff really hard, they have a whole mountain biking range, all pretty cool. And I've been, super impressed with them. And the hubs you can switch. So like if you have a bunch of weird bikes like me, where one's got a 15, the other one's got a 12, you can switch those things out. And it's kind of like, just a hub that you kind of keep forever as long as you maintain it. And I guess the last thing of note is that mechanics have told me that these hubs work really, really well, and they're one of the recommended hubs. So until next time, when in doubt, pedal it out.